So glad you could join us again. You're watching Daybreak on the Rise News, and it's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. We begin with our sister publication this day, and it's leading with rising theft. Nigeria records 193 million barrels of crude oil deficits in 11 months. The writer there produces 441 million barrels of projected 635 million crude, and only 12 of country's 53 oil rigs active. Let's take a look at some of the stories above the nameplate this morning. Buhari receives manufacturers, promises access to Forex. AFCFTA, federal government to fast-track establishment of designated authority for administration of rules of origin. And of course, NASIMA analysts list measures to reverse Nigeria's trade deficit. The window story, electoral bill, civil society organizations, right, National Assembly highlights cross-referencing errors in the bill. And Lagos Assembly passes 1.4 trillion naira budget of consolidation. Abiodun, that's the governor of Ogun State, signs 351 billion naira 2022 spending plan into law. And final one here, Masari, Islam allows a person to protect himself and family. Find out details, make a copy of this date today.
The Punch newspaper is leading with oil ownership. Arawa Consultative Forum backs Obasanjo. Pandef, INC Fume say constitution fraudulent. Right above the nameplate, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria visits President Buhari, laments serial challenges, and gets Forex pledge. Airlines, others rake in 146 billion naira in 9 months as aviation industry rebounds. And the federal government borrows 13.6 trillion naira via bonds in 6 months amid rising deficit financing. That's on page 29.
The Nigerian Tribune this morning, manufacturers run to Buhari over Forex, also electricity and tax rate. President assures on improved supply for importation. Nigeria's foreign reserve dips by over $59 million. Also on the front page, family demands justice over over killing a 300 level varsity student by suspected Yahoo boys. Bandits kill 82-year-old district head sons. 2 others burn palace in Zamfara. Also 2 Nigerian dons make list of top global scientists. And and also Nigeria won't take expired vaccines again. That's according to the DG of NAFDAC this morning.
Well, let's look at the Guardian, Nigeria, and it leads with proudly Nigerian, proudly African. It's their man of the year, and that is the AFDB president, Akinwumi Adesina there. You can pick up a copy to read about this man.
Moving on to other papers now, let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph. Testing in tatters as Javid blames huge surge in demand.
Also the Financial Times this morning, Musk rejects claims his satellites are squeezing out rivals in space. Also the World Health Organization warns of Omicron tsunami as US and Europe break infection records, and Hong Kong raid mutes freedom voice. That's the Financial Times this morning.
The Mirror reports simply blocking road to freedom. Anti-vax mob cause chaos at testing center. As Prime Minister says, 90% in intensive care not fully jabbed, and Labour is calling to tackle web virus conspiracists.
I've got the I newspaper here. 183,037 COVID cases hit new daily record as Prime Minister Boris Johnson gets under pressure over testing shortages.
And the Guardian UK this morning, hospitals urged to find space for 4,000 extra beds as cases surge. Also starvation, chaos and fear stalk Afghans, and gender pay gap getting worse at UK firms.
The Financial Times is reporting Elon Musk rejecting claims his satellites are squeezing out rivals in space.
And finally, from the Daily Mirror, blocking road to freedom. Reclaim the NHS and jab tyranny now.
Well, for more on these stories and what's in the front pages, let's now bring in Emmanuel Bello. Good morning to you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. As always, let's start with this day newspaper. We're finding out the rising theft here. Nigeria records 193 million barrels of crude oil deficit in 11 months. So what can the government do to stop this action?
Well, it calls for tough action from government because this is a very dire situation and a very important story too. And it's good that these days it's leading with that. I think these days stayed on this week stayed on oil story for practically almost every day, doing one story or the other in the oil industry. Maybe because of what Obasanjo said, President Obasanjo said the other day. But this is a very important story, and it's important that we look at those sectors because now it's making the job even easy for the federal government. We're pointing to the problem. The newspaper is pointing to the problem that is oil theft, and that this is going on, and it's even giving statistics showing how much we're losing. And if you cannot produce those required numbers, of course, that will also affect whatever revenues or earnings you are expecting from the sector. So the problem has been made bare before the federal government. It's now to have the leadership, the will, the sense of security, and also the kind of collaborative efforts, the synergy between host communities, regulatory bodies, to do the job of really protecting those places. Beyond even the theft, it's also raising another problem, discussing what is the rigs that are active and those that are not. So this is a very important problem, and if you think that this is the cash cow of the economy or the hen that lays the golden eggs, then you know you need to really protect the sector and look at it and be serious about it. A lot of people will say it calls for serious leadership, it calls for serious undertakings, because at the heart of it is even the economy and the survival of the people. So this is a big story, and I think those in authority should be able to pick it and go beyond the story itself and get to know what to do.
Well, let's look at the Punch. I don't think anybody expected that the story was going to go anywhere anytime soon. The oil ownership in Nigeria, it's a long debate. You said so yourself yesterday. It's back on the front pages this morning, Emmanuel Bello, and the Punch is riding with that. This time around, it says the ACF, the Arewa Consultative Forum, backs Obasanjo, PANDEF, and of course INC Fume say constitution fraudulent. I meant constitution if you are not pleased with Obasanjo's argument, ACF tells Clark and PANDEF. And of course, constitution flawed, imposed by military, ex-president mischievous, says Pan 90 Delta Forum. So it's as divided as, just as old as this argument is, Emmanuel Bello. Do we ever find a middle ground? There is oil. Who takes responsibility of it? There are those who are bearing the brunt. The communities where we find this oil are bearing the brunt. Should they not truly own this oil? And what role is the Constitution going to play in all of this?
Well, the idea, you're right. It's a topic that always generates this level of energy and emotions and arguments, counter arguments across the board. And you're right. Where's the middle ground to all of this? A lot of people have said that, look, if there's some form of social justice, some form of host communities enjoying some real percentage or some real chunk of what they're producing, and someone actually thinking about the environmental degradation that these people suffer, and that there should be some justice around that issue. There should be some equity in the distribution and some fairness even. Some people say that maybe to some extent these people will understand what the rest of the country is talking about. But the other larger issue is the one that the former president brought on board, which is the issue of the constitution itself. And there are people who have said that, look, yes, there should be some form of amendment for a constitution that was practically, imposed on us, and that is the problem. To some extent, they're actually saying what former President Obasanjo said, that look, if you have a problem with what is happening now with the sharing formula, with the control, the issue of resource control, then don't look further to any region or to any particular person. Look at the constitution. That's the problem. So, and the president is getting some backing out with former president getting some backing from certain, power blocks, saying that yes, the problem is not with anyone, it's with the constitution. But just to your question, yes, some form of understanding can exist if, of course, there's some form of real justice, some social justice around the issue of who gets what, how much they're getting, and especially how those things that they're getting help their community. I think it's a very important thing that we look at what oil is beginning to do to, or has been doing to communities that are producing this. It's terrible. I mean, if you're from these places, you can understand that, look, we produce this, and yet we don't get the value we are supposed to get, irrespective of what any constitution is saying. So it's difficult to explain to someone that is looking at its environment and looking at the degradation there and wondering what's going on and going elsewhere in the world and seeing what those monies are doing for people. It's difficult to explain to them that, well, this is just about the constitution. And even if it is just about the constitution, there are people that will say, go beyond that and see what you can really do for host communities and the people who are producing this.
So, Emmanuel, the Nation newspaper, our worries over 2023 general elections by INEC. The 2023 general elections may be in jeopardy unless concerted efforts are made to halt the worsening insecurity in the country. These are the words of the electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, or INEC. Emmanuel, INEC is complaining. What am I supposed to do? What are the young people out there who will be turning 18 in 2023 ready to vote? What are they going to do?
I know, Kenneth, actually yesterday you expressed concern, you were even asking whether we're going to have an election or not, and then today we're seeing this story, with the umpire saying that, look, yes, those elections are in danger. Yesterday we were looking at transmissions, issue of electronics, and how to get better results. But now the story today has actually moved a step further to even the issue of security around the election itself. And the umpires are beginning to talk about the problem that most people really worry about. How safe, are those places where we're going to have elections? How safe? We've seen in the last elections how those issues came into play, and you have those heavy deployments of security. But when you have an election around the country and with the kind of crisis that you are having, how are you going to prosecute it? So this is something that should worry, especially not just those who are seeking offices, but the people who are going to work around those elections, the staffing and other people. This should be a worrisome story, but the problem too again is presented, the issue of security. And the president is already promising that in the next 17 months, they will do everything in their power to secure the country. He needs to do that because he wants to bequeath a legacy of good elections, a great transition. And the only way he can do that, the umpire is pointing out, is by securing places and making everywhere safe. So that's a challenge for the federal government to really look into.
Well, Emmanuel, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this morning.